Okay, good evening. Tonight's shiur is going to be opinion regarding mechitzas between men and women, and hopefully, if we will have time, we will be mashlim the misunderstanding which we had last time, and we'll go over a little bit some halachas from Siman Chof Aleph of Ebenezer, basically things which is negaya between men and women, the archokos, and how to deal in workplaces. Me'etz Hashem, that will be more in the second half of the shiur. Okay. So the tour in Shulchan Aruch in beginning of Siman Chof Aleph, which you learned, zuk the tour like this. The Mechaba brings it down. People have to stay away from women very much. And Beis Shmuel on Sifkot Aleph writes, since the Chazal say that Gezel v'aroyas nafshoy shel odem machamdason, that means these are the things which human nature, it's a human nature that you should want to steal, because people like money, and aroyas is also a thing which is a human thing which is normal. L'chain, that's why the Torah writes ma'oid, because anything which is very hard for a person, he's close to it, he has a desire to it, and it's also the Shulchan Aruch will write ma'oid. We see also in Yeridai Kif Samach Gabaribas that it says ma'oid, because ribas is also a thing which people feel that they have a right to do, and it's very tempting, because he has his money sitting around, and and why should he lend it if he would like to make money? So therefore, the Shulchan Aruch has to say ma'oid. Same is also like Bashoichet, and therefore Bashoichet also is very tempting. So therefore, it says ma'oid. So now, since it says also by erchukim and arois ma'oid, because this is also a thing which is very tempting. Now, although the Gemara says in Bava Basra only miyat baroyas, ribam begezel miyat, only the minority are nishel in aroyas, but sof once you get hooked onto it, it's almost impossible to it's very hard to go away from it. So therefore, it says ma'oid. And therefore, you have to make all kind of gedorim, sayogam, that you shouldn't get to the nisyonis. We are not, as I mentioned last year, like Yosef Atzadik, which when you have a nisoyin head on, we should be able to, overcome it. So we have to make all kind of gedorim, visyogam, like yiched, like other things, that we should stay away from these kind of things. That's why the Rambam says that in Ches Yontov, and it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, after Yontov, by Yontov, the best had to have police. We make fun of Iran. There's Tzanias police. According to Shulchan Aruch, this is what we need to do, because since we are busy Yomim Tovim, eating and drinking and having a good time, which is a mitzvah, Simchas Yontov, we have to have special police to look around that Chaz v'Shalom shouldn't come to a virus. It says in Sefer Chassidim, Siman Kif Samaches, that you have to make a division between men and women. It's not only between men and women, it's also between younger male and female, also between boys and girls. Because it brings a very nice rai from the Posik. It says, we say it every day by davening. It says, Bachirim v'gam basilas. Bachirim v'gam basilas, it says, boys and girls, that we will dance, boys and girls. And then it says Zekainim imnurim. It says old and young, together with young. Zekainim imnurim. But when it comes to basilim, it doesn't say basilim and basilois, because that's osir. It says Bachirim v'gam basilas. So al kaponam, we see that when it comes to things which has to do with women, you have to make all kind of gedorim v'siyugam, and it's not poshut. You have to, so therefore, making a machitza by affairs a very important thing. So let's start, by the beginning of it, the Mekoros. First of all, we have to know the Isser of Tarivas Anoshim Anoshim, it is a din michlat. It's halacha berura. There's no ways around. It's not tuli and in the time. It's not tuli in the place. Someone say today's day is different. No, there's no difference. The same Torah which you had 3,000 years ago, same Torah is now. And even if a place which there isn't a chashash of harira avayra, you still have the Isser of separation between men and women. Now, the makar of them, there is we have to make it clear. There's a difference, first of all, with the mechitza, which has to do in a shul. Then mechitza we have to do with affairs, seudas, parties, chasanas, and other, etc. So the makar of din in a mechitza in a shul is the Gemara in Sukkah. The Gemara in Sukkah in Aleph and Aleph. Zug the Mishnah, B'motzi Yom Tov Harishon Shel Chag, Moitzua Yom Tov from the first days of Sukkot, Yordi le'Ezras Noshim, the whole Klal Yisrael went down to Ezras Noshim, in Mesaknen Sham Tikkun Gudel. We made a gewaltige Tikkun, they made over there Tikkun Gudel. So the Gemara asks, my Tikkun Gudel, what is this big Tikkun which the Gemara says? The Blazer says, the Tikkun Gudel means that what we learned in Masechtas Midas, Peirik Bais Mishnah Hai, so we learned Chalaka Hoisu B'Rishonim. That means the Azora was flat. And Rashi explains there was no zizim, like beams coming out from the walls. Vikifiyu Gzustara, and they installed Gzustara means like beams on the walls, coming out from the wall, all around. And every year, they used to put on the beams a platform, and they used to make a balcony for the women should be able to stand in as a noshim on top of the balcony. They should be able to see Simchas Beis HaShaiva. And that's the Tikkun Gudel which they made. They made the balcony that the women should be on top, the women should be in the bottom. And the Gemara continues. Tone Rabbanan, B'Rishoinu, first, before they made this Tikkun Gudel, Hoyenoshim B'Fnim, the women were in Ezas Noshim, inside, the Anoshim B'Chitz, and the Noshim, the men were outside, Baruch Meshel Harabais, as Rashi explains. There were two separate rooms. The women were in the Ezas Noshim, the men were outside in the Baruch Meshel Harabais, and they came to Kalas Rosh. Hiskinu, so they made a tikkun that the women should be outside and the men should be inside. That was the first tikkun. Vadai and boom like Kalas Rosh. And even then, in such a case, they still came to Kalas Rosh. They came to do things which is inappropriate. Hiskinu, they made a tikkun, she'ainoshim yoishvim lamalu va'anoshim lamatu. That means they made a balcony, the women should be on top. That's the third shlav, a tikkun gudel, that basically the men should be in the bottom, like the shields we have, like 770, the women are on top in the balcony, and men are downstairs. So the Gemara asks, Heicha Ovid Hucha, how did they do it? That means, how did they be able to add on to the Beis HaMikdash? Why not? There's a passing in Divrei Yomim regarding David HaMelech, when he told for Shlomo HaMelech the exact way how the Beis HaMikdash should look like. He said, Hakel bichsav miyad havaya ulai hiskil. That means everything was written according to what Hashem tells me. Everything was according to what Hashem told for God Achoize and Nosna Novi, that he should tell for David HaMelech. So the Gemara asks, how could you add on to Beis HaMikdash? It's not part of the plan which Hashem gave for the Nevi'im, even though you have to make a tikkun, but you cannot add on to the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara answers, Omarav, Kro Ashkechu. They found a posik. That what? That you have to make, you have to make a division between men and women. What? What is the posik? There's a posik in Zechariah, Perig Yud Beis, posik Yud Beis. It says like this: V'sov the horse. It says over there. Then we know there's going to be before Mashiach ben David should come right away. Mamash. Before them is going to be Mashiach ben Yosef, and he's going to get killed by the Goyim. So the pasuk says V'sov the horse. That means the Klal Yisrael will make a hesped on the Shiach ben Yosef, which got killed by Mechem is going to Mumgoik. Mishpochas levat. Family separately are going to have the hesped. That's exactly what the pasuk says. Mishpochas beis David levat. The women is going to be separate. The men v'neshayim levat. This is the pasuk. This is the quote of the pasuk. The mishpachas beis David is going to be on one side, and neshayim, their wives, is going to be on the other side. That means there's going to be separation. So Chazal say, and we're talking about of a hesped. You're talking about bezman tzar, or even by a levaya. So the Gemara says, "V'aloi v'vum kal v'chomer." It's like kal v'chomer. Ma la'osid lovoi, if la'osid lovoi, when they're asking behesped, which is as matzaf in tzar, and as Rashi explains, when a person is betzar, it doesn't have so much. The Yetzer Hara doesn't come and dry my cup that much. So even then, we see they have separation, and even more. Even la'osid lovoi, which we know Hashem is going to kill shecht, the Sultan, there won't be a malachim as Yetzer Hara, because it says Vaseroisi leve ever. And even though in such a case the Torah says that it's going to be hesped women separately than men, so the Torah says, so the Chazal make they learn that if by a hesped you have to have separation, avada and avada bezman simcha, besamigdish and bezman simcha, dancing is avada and avada, you have to make a separation between men and women. This is the Gemara. So from this Gemara, the Moshe Feinstein in his Orchaim, Schailik Aleph, in the beginning, Simon Lamates, writes, from this we see, making a machitza is not only a chiva d'rabbanan, it's a chiva midaraisa. Because since the Gemara answers that the reason why they can add on the Beis Hamikdash, because the Beis Hamikdash was, although Hashem gave written instructions through the Nevi'im, that how you should make the Beis Hamikdash, and they say, and the Gemara says that you could change it because they have a pasuk. Is the pshat is the answer is that menatori you need a division, because if it's all midrabanan, how could midrabanan make that you should be able to add on a Beis Hamikdash, which the Hashem told exactly how you should do it. So since the Gemara says you could add on because we have a pasuk, it means the pasuk comes to tell us that menatori has to be a division, and therefore since menatori you have to have a division. If it comes to Kalas Roish, you are permitted to add on to make this terum. It's not you're permitted, you have to do it because it's awesome in a Torah to be in a matzav that it should be women and men should be together without a mechitza. Fine. So, but let's go a step further. What was the reason for the mechitza? In the Gemara Pashtus, the Gemara tells us that the mature was since there was Kalas Roish. So therefore you have to make a mechitza. Now, what does it mean? It bring Kalas Rosh. What was the Nekida? Was it because the men and women looked at one at each other, or because they got mingled together? So if the reason is because they should look at each other, then maybe you need to have a mechitza, that you should be able to look at each other. If the reason is that you shouldn't mingle together, but not necessarily you shouldn't look together, that means the Kalas Rosh did not come from looking at each other, only from being together, be able to mingle together. So therefore, it's enough as long as you have a mechitza, lav davke has to be that you should be able to look at each other. Now, when you look in Peresh HaMashnayos Lehramba, which in Masechta Sukkah, he writes like this. They made, but Tikkun, when he writes, he says they made a place for the women and a place for the men. The place for the women was on top, lamala, a high place. Kedai shelo yistakli ho'anoshim benoshim. In order the men should not look and stare at the women. The same is also in Peresh HaMashnayos Masechtas Midas. Zukt of them Rambam. In Meira, they were afraid. Shemu yis arvi hanoshim anushim ekifi beshkufim atumim. They made walls which was shkufim atumim, and as the chanikis abayis, the pirish of the beer over there writes, what does it mean shkufim atumim? They made one way mechitzas glass. that the women should be able to look into the men, and the men should not be able to look into the women. So we see at least from the Perish Meshayis Rambam, the reason they were afraid was the Kalas Rosh came from men looking at women. You look in Rambam, in the Sefer Hayad, Peirik Ches, Hilchas Lile, Valocha Yidbeis, the Rambam changes the word and says, Hoi Mesaknim Bamigdish, they were made a tiknim in Besamigdish, Mokim Lenoshim Milamalu, a place, a balcony for the women on top, and for the men in the bottom, Kedai Shlois Arvu Eilu im Eilu. They should mingle, men and women should mix together. And the same is also in Hilchas Beis Abchira. The Rambam says, Kedai Shloia Mir Vuvim. They shouldn't get mixed together. So we see over here, according to the Rambam and Perish Mishnah, the reason you have to make a mechitza is because you shouldn't see each other, look at each other. According to the Perish Rambam and Perish Hayab, it is a mechitza in order you should mingle together, not necessarily look at each other. So we have, so to speak, a stira between the two Rambams. Now, the Moshe Feinstein in the Chiva, which I mentioned before, he says that the main halacha is like the Rambam in Sefer Hayad, and the reason why we need the mechitza is they should mingle together. And therefore, Zuk to the Moshe, a gewaldige chiddush, a mechitza which is till the shoulders, yeah, that means it is about 18 tfachim. That's already a mechitza that makes sure that men and women should mingle together. They could look at each other, but since the Rambam's reason is you should mingle and not necessarily you should look at each other, so therefore it's enough 18 a mechitza of 18 tfachim, and you don't need more. You can make that a mechitza of 10 tfachim, like you need in Hilchas Shabbos, in Hilchas Erev, in Chasukkah. No, because when you have a very tiny mechitza, it's still a possibility you mingle together, mix together. We have a mechitza which is all the way till your shoulders, although your head, you could see that's already enough that you shouldn't mingle together, shouldn't be mixed together. And your paskins that 18 tfachim, it's enough to have a mechitza. Now, he himself says that if you could do more, is a vadigit, but the chiyuv, he wants to say the chiyuv min ha-Torah is only a mechitza which is 18 tfachim high. Now, according to the Moshe, if you have a mechitza which is, let's say, not 18 tfachim, it's 30 tfachim high, but from 18 tfachim and up is, for instance, a see-through glass, is not a problem, since there is a wall, but they have a glass, and you could see each other, but you can't mingle together. So according to Moshe, it's not a problem, because Saf Kol Sof, it is a mechitza that you should mix together to each other. But again, 10 tfachim, he says that's not enough, because although in other halachas it's called in Hilchas Mechitza a mechitza, but not when we want to avoid men and women shouldn't mix together. Now, the Moshe's chiddush is a big chiddush b'chlal. Why is it a big chiddush? Because even if you say that the kalas roish was by mixing together, yeah, but after all, if you could see to each other once, you could still have a problem of kalas roish. Because let's assume taki you cannot mix together, but kalas roish you can still get. Even if you could look to one to each other, you could be koiretz, as you could look, you could be maramas, you could do all kind of things with a lady. So in such a case, it's still a problem of kalas roish. It's not like a hitter. You're right. Maybe it's not a problem of hitter, but it's still a problem of kalas roish. And we see clearly in Piska Herid, one of the Rishonim, the early Rishonim, writes, his kinu, we made a tikkun, that it should be a noshim b'bachitz, the man should be outside, if a noshim b'mifnim. And they still came to kalas roish. Says the Piska Herid, again, one of the early Rishonim, showing mistaklim, they were looking to each other. They made faces, they made remozim. How do you say remozim in English? I don't know how to translate kurtzim, if somebody could help me. But you could still have, be maramas with your eyes, which is awesome. Being maramas in koirezan for isha is a iser. And according to Rishonim, some Rishonim, it's a deraisa. So the Moshe's Chiddush Bechlal, that's saying that the Kalas Rosh is not seeing, only mixing together is a Chiddush, and therefore 18 Tvachim it's enough, is a Gvaldi Grosse Chiddush. But Lamaisa, Ribe Kikiloi, I would say, Ribe Kikiloi means Mamash Ribe Kikiloi. All the Achroinam disagree with the Moshe vividly, strongly, very strong. And they hold that basically they made it lamala, they put the gallery on top, not because they should mingle together. It's only because you should look at each other. And this is how the Maram Shik, the Hillel, the Tzitz Eliezer, the Divrei Yoel and Shiva, all of them say that basically has nothing to do with mingling together, mixing together, it has to do always with looking together. And it's a very gishmak raya, poshit raya, which it's poshit Chiddush Moshe didn't realize that. What did Rashi say? Rashi explains what was the problem. First, they had men in one room and women in the other room, and what was the problem? Now, it's two separate rooms. The only problem is they look to each other. And even though Zuk the Gemara, that was a problem when it came to Kalas Rosh. So that fraud is not enough. We see that the problem is not only it has to be a separation, because before they put the gallery on top, we still had a problem that was born in Kalas Rosh. And that's why they made a balcony. So we see the Kalas Rosh is not because they were mingling together, because they were separate rooms. And the Kalas Rosh was looking to each other, smiling to each other, koirezan with the eyes to each other, which that's also. And again, I would say Ribe Kikila, there's rarely poiskem which will agree with the Moshe that the problem is just mixing together, and therefore a mechitza, which is 8 tvachim is enough, has to be a mechitza that you cannot see from men to women. Now let's go now seeing what the Rebbe shit in the Rebbe. Rabbi Seinen is Yeini, because again, after all, we are Chassidei Chabad, and we have to know how we have to go about. Now the Rebbe says clearly, there's a sikha from the Rebbe, Yid by Stamas, Tavshich of Dalet. If you can look her up, it's page, in Sichas Kodesh, page 451. I'm giving the exact because you should know that I want to quote the Rebbe's solution. You should know that basically the Rebbe was basically uncompromisable in this whole thing. The Rebbe says like this: in as the shul zeluma kosher mechitza, a shul needs to have a kosher mechitza. As a nushim zolin nushim, that men should not be able to look and see women. Why? Vorim dus is niet a din van a mechitza for gimel tvuchem as ziegen zolin nishkele dorgat. The Rebbe says, like sarcastically, in the Hallelujah, there's such a thing that there's a mechitza which is above a mechitza which is above gimel tvuchem. It's a problem because goats could go through. So if it's less than gimel tvuchem, then that's okay. So the Rebbe says we don't need a mechitza that basically only that goats shouldn't go through. We need a mechitza not for goats, only for men and women that they shouldn't see each other. So the Rebbe clearly paskens not like the Moshe and like all other poskim, that the mechitza has to be in order a person should not see the woman section. There's no such thing as we could look in and see the woman section. Of course, in such a case, we will see that the Rebbe is shoyle legomra having glass mechitzas because the whole kid is you shouldn't look at each other. Therefore, when in the Geras Igres Kodesh Heilig Yutes, page Ein Dalet 74, somebody asked the Rebbe, "Im a mechitza which the upper top is made from see-through glass, like which I mentioned before, according to the Moshe, it's not a problem because as long as there is a mechitza, and the problem is not seeing each other, the problem is mingling together, mixing together, so it's okay." So he asked, maybe the Rebbe holds also like this, that you have a mechitza, let's say the first 10 tvachim is a regular mechitza, and on top there's glass. So the Rebbe answers, Lekozvoi, what you write wegen a machitza, regarding a machitza, was the oberste Teil is von a durchsichtige Glas, which the upper part is from see-through glass. So the Rebbe answers, it was gemacht choisig von sich allein. You're making fun of yourself. Why? Because whom are you fooling? Whom are you fooling? This is the language of the Rebbe. Wem narrt man aus damit? Whom are you fooling? Because the Rebbe's shitta is not like Ramosh. The Rebbe's shitta is that the mechitza has to be that you shouldn't be able to look and see women on the other side of the section. Even clearer of this, we have in a letter which the Rebbe writes to Harav Bogomilsky, the Shmuel Pesach Bogomilsky. He got an offer to become a rabbi in a shul. And he asked the Rebbe what kind of conditions he should make in order to accept the mantle of Rabbonos. The Rebbe answers him, Igris Kodesh Chalik Chovov, page 156, Kif Niinvov, in the bottom. One of the conditions has to be Hamachitza. The Machitza has to be Lamalu Mikoymas Ish. Has to be above the person's head. That means all the way till above the head of a person. So the Shmuel Pesach asks the Rebbe, does that mean about 6 feet? The Rebbe answers him, lefuchos, minimum 6 feet. So at least we see the Rebbe's shit over here. What kind of mechitza we need to have in a shul? So then there is a Shmuel Pesach Bogomilsky asks, can it be a mechitza of glass? That was his question, of glass. So the Rebbe answers him like this: I am sure you mean a glass which is not see-through. Because if it's see-through, whom are you fooling? So you're talking about a glass which is not see-through. It looks like that Shmuel Pesach, his question was if you could have a glass like there is in 770. So the Rebbe answers him, I'm sure you mean a glass which is not see-through, because the see-through is the red. So you're talking about one which is not see-through. Even on that, the Rebbe answers him, why are you trying to push yourself in, looking for a heter, which the whole heter is very, very doiche gudel. It's a very schwere heter. Without even realizing that there's a big difference between 770 mechitza and the mechitza which you are talking about. Why? Because our mechitza 770 is on a balcony. למען מקויבס udam. למען מאזes anushim. And the Rebbe quotes the Gemara in Sikhen in all of Safamot Beis. And then the Rebbe says, and you basically, you are mavatal this whole chilik, that there's a big chilik between if it's on a balcony or it's not on a balcony. So what do we see from the Rebbe's mana? Let's sum it up. We see like this. If there is a glass, see-through glass, there's nothing what to do, it's not a mechitza, and basically you're wasting your time. It has nothing to do with halacha, it's also the tachlis. If it has not see-through glass, but after all, the man could see a figure of a lady. You cannot see a lady, but you can see a figure of a lady. That means you have tinted windows, but you still can look through. So the Rebbe, if it's like a balcony, like 770, okay, then we can understand, because we can be Michael, because in order to see, you have to open your eyes, you have to pick up your head, and look, and even then it's not 100% see-through. Of this, we could be Michael. But if it's side by side, like most shuls, it's not a balcony, or in the back and the front, the women on the back and the men on the front are side by side, and it's not fully tinted out, zog the Rebbe, then it's a problem. If it's a balcony, you can be Michael. 770 is different, because although it's not 100% closed, it's not 100% not see-through, but it's on a balcony. So that's we see basically that the Rebbe shit is against the Moshe. A mechitza of 18 tvochem is not enough. A mechitza which is lemalu on a balcony, you could have not see-through glass, but it doesn't have to be blacked out all the way, 100%. If the as the noshim is on top, you could have one which is not, as I just said, yeah. If it is side by side, then you cannot have it. You should be able to see a figure. It should be in a way that you shouldn't be able to see even a figure of a lady, and they should be able to look into the men, and the men should not be able to look into the women's section. That's the Rebbe's shitta. Okay, so that's all what we have. So let's sum it up. One thing, and it's very important because since this is a program for Rabbanim or future Rabbanim or Shlicham, you should know there is no heter according to most poskim and beikar Rabbasayin is only the Rebbe to have a shvacha machitza in a shul. Has to be a machitza which is 100% closed between men and women, minimum 6 feet tall, even more. The Rebbe says lefucha is even more. Has to be non-see-through glass. If it's side by side, you could be lenient. If it's a balcony, you could be lenient that it doesn't have to be 100% darkened. It could be, I would say, 80%, 85%, whatever. If it's side by side, it cannot be even 85%. It has to be 100% darkened. The men should not be able to look into the men's shul, and the women should be could look into the men's section. And there's no Vadinim Atzarayni. And the Rebbe says we cannot be lenient on it. You can only have to take it a bonus. You know, all these things is basically not for you, that you should be able to make what is it called, kulas. Okay. Okay, just to note one interesting thing, which I forgot to mention. I want to mention it again. There's a letter from the Rebbe in Igris Kodesh Heilig Yudalat, page 228, Reichhof Ches. The Rebbe writes to Moshe Paisa Bogimilski. He wrote a duch of what he did in a shul that had a small machitza. And the Rebbe writes, Yashikoyach Gudel is Gudel Zchisoy al She'olo Beyudoi Lasois to bring up the machitza. V'ziko es haram as chisaram tulibo. The Rebbe writes that a gewaldige stadlist that you made that they should make a taller mechitza, and I hope b'meshech hazman b'divrei noyam iboife shel kuvot, you should make it even more taller than that, because in order to make sure that there shouldn't be any way that men and women should be able to look into each other. Well, after he wrote this duch to the Rebbe, got the Rebbe's shiva, he writes like this. The Moshe Pesach Bogimilski, he printed it in a chira for when he made chasana of his daughter. He printed his side of the letter. He writes the Rebbe like this. I asked the Moshe Dover Rivkin, I asked the Rosh Hashiva of Teirvedas, one of the Lubavitcher Chassidim was still by the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe Shmusa Eiden, if I could have a mechitza of 4 feet, if that's enough. And Rav Rivkin tells it that, what was his question? Make first a mechitza of 4 feet, and then after a while, we'll be able to pick it up slowly but surely. Once I'll be a rabbi over there, I'll pick it up slowly, higher and higher. And he writes, especially since it's a shul, because if I'm going to be very strong, and the man and mechitza, people might leave the shul, might join the conservative movement and leave orthodoxy. So I asked Rabbi Rivkin what to do. And Rabbi Rivkin answered him that this is a shala ruchnis which you have to ask the Rebbe. I cannot answer such a shala. So he asked the Rebbe this shala. The Rebbe answers him in the Geras HaKodesh Heilig Chof Gimel, page Reish Niendale 254. Listen to the Rebbe's answer. It's mind-boggling. Ein ze in yonoi klal. It's none of your business that if they're going to join the conservative movement. You're asking me, maybe I would like to have a smaller mechitza because I want to make sure that they should join the conservative movement. That shul should go away from orthodoxy to conservative. The Rebbe says, it's not your business. You know, you got to do what the Shulchan Aruch is. And according to Tzolach in Gudli, if this is according to halacha, so therefore it's none of your business. If you can't allow such a thing. You cannot become thereof. And if they're going to join the conservative movement, they should do whatever they want. It's not your heter. That means at least we see how strong the Rebbe was against compromising anything when it comes to mechitzas, especially in a shul. And why do I stress it? Because I have to say, I was enough Chabad houses today's day which have shuls, which is not 100% ausgalt according to halacha and according to the Rebbe Shitta. And since you are shlich, is a part of the Meshalayach, you have to make sure and put down the feet. A mechitza has to be according to halacha and has to be according to the Rebbe's Shitta. And the Rebbe told us always, in Mekarvam la Torah, you have to be Mekarav the Yidden to the Torah, and not Mekarav on the Torah to them. Now you have to do what is right, and anybody doesn't want to join because you have a kosher mechitza in shul, they should join somewhere else. It's none of your business. Okay, so that's all what we spoke regarding a mechitza when it comes to a shul. Now let's go further, making mechitzas in a place which you get together, men and women, but not in a shul. Now, when we see when we see in the mechitza in Beis Hamikdash, it's not necessarily a shul. The Beis Hamikdash was not necessarily a shul. It was not necessarily for dancing. It was for dancing. It was a masibah. And as the Moshe quotes in that tshuva, Simulamates, it's possible to say, first we could say that only in Beis Hamikdash it's awesome in a Torah because there's a din of Mikdoshi Tirui. We could say so. That means we could say that it's only a din in a shul since Mikdoshi Tirui. So therefore it's a din in shul, but not necessarily min a Torah, other kibbutzim, other things which you get together. Says the Moshe, but it's not true. It is even in a Torah, you have to have a mechitza, even a place which is not davening and not in a shul. And it brings a very nice raya. Because from where does the Gemara tell us that we have to make a mechitza? From where does the Gemara take this limud? It was by a hesped. It was by a hesped. It was by a mess. It wasn't a shul. It wasn't a Beis Hamikdash. It was a. It could be in the what is it called, the funeral house, or in any house. And even there we see it's a deraisa that you have to have a mechitza. Zok to the Moshe Feinstein that you have to have a mechitza min Torah whenever it is a kvias of a kvutza. That means whenever it is men and women come together for a kvias, something which is kvias, a kvua. I mean, it's not just happen to be they came together, and they come together as to do one thing. As we're going to see, let's say if you come together in a restaurant or you come together in some places, happens to be men and women, not over there, there's no chiyuv. The Moshe gives two no. One has to be that you came together for a mission together, a hesped or whatever it should be, a chasen or whatever, or has to be that you came together because we see over there, it's a kvias that you came together. Then he goes on, and the Moshe goes on to ask, is there any heter if it's only not too much women? So the Moshe says no. If it's something which is kvua, or in a shul, or if it's a kvidig, no, you cannot be lenient, even if it's one lady. If it is b'oifen arai, and there is one or two women, boyfriend arai, for then you could be lenient. That's the Moshe Shitta, and he gives a marshal. Even in old home, that means that all time used to be that women used to come in. A lady used one or two women used to come in and collect money in the men's shul. Like today's day, if they're going to come in any men's shul, they're going to kick the hair out. But it used to be such a many. So the Moshe wants to say that we see, since it's not a kavua, she doesn't come in constantly. It's only once in the blue moon a lady comes in, and it's only one or two women. Then it's not considered a kibbutz. It's not considered a kavua, and therefore it can be more lenient. But it says if you have already more than two women, or it's a kavua, for instance, coming into for krisa Torah, even Shabbos b'mincha, whatever, then it's awesome. So again, the Moshe puts down the kids advorim akroi, and it has to be it has to be beoifenvis is akroi, and not too much women. Okay. Another thing, it's not masasib doing a meshitef. That means if they do something together, then there's a problem. So according to this, it happens to be that the one lady decides she wants to come into shul because she has your side, and it is a chabaras which doesn't have a mechitza because they don't have a women's section, whatever it should be. If it's a one, it could happen once. It's not another thing which is kavua, and it's only one or maximum two women. You could let them in the back, and they should say answer kaddish and say kaddish or answer kaddish. I mean, such a thing you could be lenient. But whenever it is a davar meshituf, or it is a oifen kavua, even if it's kavua, even if it's not meshituf, then you have a problem. So therefore, when it comes according to this, we have things which you don't need to have separation between men and women. For instance, you have a public library, yeah, which a lady comes in and wants to borrow a book or return a book, yeah. So, for instance, I'm not talking Brooklyn Public Library because they're not going to ask you, but I'm talking if you have a Jewish library, Sifriyat Levi Yitzchak. In such a case, since it is a duvar arai, and since it's bakrua, and it's one somebody comes in and gives back a book, so such a thing, there's no Indian machitza papashtis. We have poskim that disagree with this. For instance, the Oz Nidbri in Chuvas Oz Nidbri Chayle Gimel Simanin Gimel, and in Oimar Rechoima Simchov Aleph writes no, that they write maybe a Pialocha we could be lenient, but a Kaponim Yesh Lahachmed, since it's people in a library, people sit there, and therefore if you're going to leave, men and women should be able to sit together in a library. It's going to come to Mamachshoilas, so they're only allowed if you're coming and giving back a book or taking a book. But if sitting in a public library, a Yiddish public library, they want to be machmir. That's the reason also why, since we mentioned that we have to have separation only when it's kavua and there is dvar meshituf. So therefore, there's no halachic requirement that in a bus or in a train or even an airplane you should have mechitzas, because you're talking men and women together, but it is everybody goes about his business. It's not they don't come together for doing meshituf, and it is a short period of time. Now it's interesting that in some poskim, the lady poskim wants to say that at least if you're going on a long trip with a train or the bus, it is kedai that you should put a mechitza. But okay, according to halacha, a trip, a person at the buses which goes from Kingston to Crown Heights, should happen, or goes to Monsey, all these things, halachic, there's not a requirement, you should have mechitza. The same goes on a train, the same goes on an airplane. Why? Because again, it is not a thing which you get together, kavua, and it's not b'aduv meshituf. The same will also be in a restaurant. Halachically, it's not a problem. A man should go in a restaurant, although there's a separate table over there, right next to him. Next table sits a lady, or that's not a problem, because since she sits on her table, you're sitting at your table, and they didn't get together. It's only happens to be like that. It's a akrui, and you didn't come together, do something together. But all the base room you have, it's only akrui. It's only temporarily, and it's only you don't do something together. Everybody minds his own business. So therefore, you don't have. There's no reason that you shouldn't go in a restaurant. Frim, you could always be frimmer. It's not a problem. But I'm talking about if the women are dressed appropriately, properly, with sneers, then it's not a problem that you should sit in a restaurant when there is other women also over there. Let's go to the next case. What's doing about public Sidorim, public Su'ud Shabbos? which is a thing which you have in Chabad houses constantly. Over here, the women and the men come together, but they come together for a specific thing. They come together for a Shabbos together, and it is a thing which is basically a meal. So whenever there's food, you're going into, it's a problem. So there again, mechitzas, you could be lenient. You don't have to have mechitza, as I mentioned before. Yeah, but you have to have separation. Has to have separation the holidays, because we're going to see women and men mixed seating is also the holidays of the. But if there is separate seating, separate tables, in separate sitting separately, and it is not a kvudige Sache, it is one Shabbos, which is not the same people coming every Shabbos, and they're sitting separately. Medina, you could be lenient. So therefore, in Chabad houses, if they do such a thing, that they sit in separate houses, separate tables, not in the same room, but separate tables, you could be lenient. Are you going to ask, we're going to see soon, when it comes to Sheva Brachas and Chasana, the poskim right against it. You cannot be in the same room, even if they sit separately, and if there is no mechitza. So the poskim say it is a big difference if it is over there. We have another problem, because over here it's a sida of sidas mitzvah with mashka, with drinks, it's something different. And also over there you're going into problems of simcha b'moni, as we're going to see soon. So chas and shei bruchos is something different. But the sida Shabbos, if it is a must, again, if it's a must, then you could be lenient. Because if it's not a must, even then you have to be machmir, as it says already in Shivas Ba'er Chaim Otcha, which is not a today's poisik. It's already a poisik. He was before the Krieg. He has a shaila. If people in the old age home, old age home with your shore, they don't have big taivas and big yetzer, and he asks if the men and women could eat in a Jewish old age home, if they could sit in the same room, making a big suda. And he says, if it is oifen fin kvia, they come every day, they come every meal, they come together in the same dining room together, then in such a case, so he paskens that you have to make a mechitza. Or it's a big sida, means a festival, then you have to make a mechitza, because over there it's shaykh kirvadas. But akapuram bikaron, halacha, and again, we're talking to Rabbonim or future Rabbonim or Shlichim. In such a case, when you need it, and sometimes you will have to have this kind of linyan. It could be in one room, but they have to be separate seating. Because again, if they sit it's also in ganzen. And we have a letter of the Rebbe, a man from the Rebbe. It was published in Dvar Melech, Tafshini in Test, Omad 127. So there's a moiset which asks the Rebbe, they're making a dinner, fundraising dinner, and they want to know if they can make a mixed seating dinner. Why? Because they are afraid maybe the donors will get upset and they will stop donating. They won't come. So maybe we should make a mixed dinner. And the Rebbe answers, quote, Lama yitche chas v'sholem vada di Yerushalayim. Why should you push away, compromising vada your Yerushalayim and v'chala noichichim sham, and all the people who are also coming to this dinner? Why should you compromise the vada, the 100% sure compromise of Yerushalayim, mipnei sofik the moment v'dachayim shichim? You have a sufik, maybe they're going to be upset. And over here is for sure you're doing something inappropriate. You cannot take this in consideration. And there's no such a thing that you should make a mixed dinner. And that was not in the shul. So we see already the Rebbe's shitta is that you make a public suda, which is a big festival, like a dinner or such a thing. The Rebbe holds as mikluli Yerushalayim that you have to have a mechitza. I'm sorry, no, it doesn't say mechitza. It says at least they cannot be mixed. Okay, so at least if it is separate seating in separate tables, even if it's one room, you can be Michael in such case that you have to. Again, if you don't have to, then we have the Ba'er Chaim Otcha. But if you have to, If there is separate seating, since it is only oifen arai, so then you could be lenient. But again, we have to remember that Rebbe's solution that you cannot compromise your Yerushalayim because maybe you're going to lose somebody who is a donor. When it comes to family, so then you could see the Shabbos together, and it's not a problem. And I'm not talking you with your children. I'm talking about extended family. That means with brother-in-law, sister-in-laws. In such a case is not necessarily has to be hafrode kemiven. If it is a thing which is it doesn't bring hiriram. If it doesn't, it's not kirov touching each other. Since it's family, sisters, close relatives. I'm not talking about cousins. Over there, you're going to get halachic because a cousin is something else. But I'm talking immediate family, not necessarily your children. You could be matter. You don't have to have mechitza and not even a froda. Okay, so this is we covered big siddur, we covered restaurants, libraries, all the places which you come together, not necessarily for a dova meshitaf. What's doing? Let's go now to a chasana and a sheva brachas. Okay, now we know the Gdoli Aposkim, right? That when it comes to siddur, nasim and sheva brachas, women and men should not be in one room. Elu noshim b'cheder echad v'anoshim b'cheder acher. That's the illusion of the Bach. Or if you want to make it in one room, you have to have a fully mechitza. And even if it's not a big crowd, still you have to have ein lehukel des loshna Bach. You cannot be lenient, even or there are separate rooms and you don't have mechitza. That means separate rooms, even it's open. Or basically it is one big room and you have a mechitza. What is the reason why? He brings down a Sefer Chassidim. In Sefer Chassidim, Siman Shin Tzadi Gimel, the Sefer Chassidim writes, you cannot make simcha b'moinoi if men and women sit together. Now, according, if you learn Pashto Sefer Chassidim, we can push in that it means mixed. If they sit together mixed, you cannot make a simcha b'moinoi. But the Bach learned Pshat, and it's not only the Bach, it is only a way more before it's in the Shoinam, the Marie Turner, the Bavrum Turner, and also the Amshe Shloime, in Sachsebas, Dele Pshat, that we are talking about in such a case, which they are sitting separately, but they're sitting without a mechitza, and if they paskin the Bach, that you cannot say Shemcha Mamoina, and a stock mit poiskim paskin like the Bach. Now we know it's a famous levush, which the levush brings down in a Rechaim Siman Tufrash Tzadik Zayin Sif Lamed Vav. So he says, "Va'ein nizorim achshuv b'zeh." Nowadays we are more lenient, and you make a simcha b'moinoi, even if the women and the men are in the same room. K'miv not me'uref, but at least they sit in the same room. And he says, "Alimatchiz zik the levush ve'efsher maybe b'shem the achshuv today's day mirgole v'anoshim." The men and women are used to seeing each other. So there's not a hirira vaira. The duma like a kode chavir. It looks like it's like a duck. That means a man sees a woman, a lady, since you're used to dealing with them, it's like seeing a dog. That's about it. So as the beard of them, as the Derech Pekitehu explains it, once upon a time, women did not go out of their house. Once a month, like the Rambam says, once a month to visit their parents. Or when I was in Yemen about 10, 15 years ago, that was like that. You couldn't see a lady on the street. Ladies were sitting at home and doing what they have to do, working, everything from the home. Only the men went out. So therefore, when a lady when a man came across a woman, it was ma'oider a lot of heririm. So therefore, we had a problem. We couldn't say simcha ma'oina because they're sitting in one room. But since now we are used to the women, since they have to today's day in order to make ends meet, the women have to go work too. So therefore, we are basically getting more used to women. We don't have that much heririm. So b'mayla, therefore, you could make a simcha b'moina. Now, all this question is simcha b'moina. The question is not if you can do it like tchila. all the points can say that even the Levish said it, but the Eved, if you did it, you can say Simcha Mamoina. The Broch Simcha Mamoina, the Broch Simcha Mamoina by benching. But Avada Lekitchila, even the Bach is masking that, even the Levish is masking, they cannot do it. And that's the Skomas HaPoiskim, that you have to make separation between a man and a woman. They cannot be in the same room, and if they are in the same room, they have to be a mechitza. If they're separate in one room, and there's not a mechitza, but they're sipping separate, you could make a simcha mamoina, but it's not a heter. The simcha mamoina, but the ever you can make a simcha mamoina. But avada, it is only about the ever to make a simcha mamoina as the variative rights and the Shemazalman and Simcha, and all other poskim write like that. Now we have to go a step further. The Baal Moshe disagrees with Bechal. He wants to say that he doesn't agree with that. It's only a krua. He's not happy. He wants some poskim wants to say that the heter of the Levish is only the bring in the kala. It's by a chasana, Bas Lababashi, we don't know it, but in the Polish Chassidim, when there's mitzvah dance, so they bring in, the women come in to the chasana zal, to the hall, before benching, because the kala should hear the bench in the Sheva Brachas. So all the women come in, and the man sit on one side, the women sit on the other side. It's in the same room without a mechitza, because by the mitzvah dance there's no mechitza. So therefore, then you can make simcha mamoina. But not as when it comes to have a sheva bruchas or a chasana, which the meal should be together. So a lot of poskim say that that's not a heter, and you cannot do it. But I can put them la maisa. You can pass that if it is such a case like that, the separate seating, you can say a simcha mamoina, although it's necessarily pushing that should be able to be miking. But now again, we have a Rebbe. Let's see what our Rebbe holds like this. The Rebbe writes, it's printed in Shar Ruch HaMinik, Chelik Hai, page 268 and 69. It's also in Igeres HaKodesh, Chelik Tes, page 3. The Rebbe quotes the Levish. The Levish says, today's day, you can make Simcha Mamoina. Why? Because we are used to women, and therefore the women are like to us like ducks, white ducks, going the chivira. So the Rebbe writes like this, quote, Bavonisayni horab. Royam, we see nowadays, asher la'ais atu, as of now, aina duvrikach. It's not like that. So the Levish comes to say that we are used to women, so we have no hiririm, and we don't have emotions, and we don't get excited when we see women. So the Rebbe Bavonisayni horab, it's not true, as of today. And I will add on, especially when it comes to chasana, shev brochas, which the women are dressed with the most beautiful dresses and makeup and perfume and all these things, is avada that you cannot be Michael, that they should sit in one room without a machitza, and the whole levish we cannot use as a heter because it is pasha. The Rebbe writes the Metzias is not like that. Now, what the Rebbe will hold, if you could say Simcha Mamoinoi, but Pashtas we would say the Rebbe will hold. In such a case, you cannot say Simcha Mamoinoi, because since the Levish whole heter is because to say Simcha Mamoinoi, and the Rebbe disagrees, so you cannot say Simcha Mamoinoi in such a case. So we have to mind we have a problem with Simcha Mamoinoi. Now, some boys come like the Divrei Yatziv, the close Magich. In their case, maybe they have a heter that you can say Simcha Mamoinoi, but by us, it's not so poshet that you will be able to say Simcha Mamoina. But again, if you said Simcha Mamoina, not a problem because we have some other poiskim. But I want at least, again, we are Labab Shechsidim, and as Labab Shechsidim, our Rebbe is the poisik and not other poiskim. There's another thing which Moshe wants to be a little bit more lenient, but he says because since it is only a family affair, but again, today's day we cannot say it. Of course, not by a chasana, because it's a chasana today's day. You have all kind of guests, so therefore you have it's not. The Moshe says that maybe if it's a small family, okay, that's maybe b'sheva brochas, and even b'sheva brochas is you have all kind of people, which is the chassan's sister-in-laws, and so therefore I'm just bringing the by Moshe just to be objective that I bought that shita. But again, the poiskim and Avada in the Rebbe do not agree that you should have a heter to sit in one room without a mechitza. So b'sheva brochas, ba mitzvah, all these things, there's no heter. And let me just add on, the poskim write, the today's contemporary poskim write, that even if you have separate rooms, even if you have a smorgasbord or the food is between and the men and women have to be together, take from that, that's also a problem. Because again, of course, darkness is a problem of mingling together too, but even if not, being together around food, it is a problem. What's talk about Simchas Torah? Can you be more lenient, Simchas Torah, that the women, you should take off the mechitza, the women should be able to see? In such a case, the Chivas V'Yar Yosef is vividly against it. It says no, even though it's Simchas Shal Mitzvah, but you can still see Kalas Rosh, and he has a nice raya because Simchas Hamikdash was also Simchas Shal Mitzvah. So therefore, Simchas Torah is no different. But at least, again, we are Lubavitcher Chassidim, and we cannot only take the chimnos of the Rebbe, we can also take the kills of the Rebbe. So the Rebbe writes in Toras Menachem Tovshin Yites, it's a volume Chavdalat, page 131. The Rebbe writes that if in Simchas Torah there are people which they are more lenient, that the women and the men should be able to see each other, not Chaz v'Shulam coming in, and it's based on Imre Pinchas. The Tamam, they have their reasons, and the Rebbe finishes Va'ain Maschichem Oysa. So the Rebbe doesn't say it's okay, but the Rebbe says Va'ain Maschichem Oysa. That means don't make a gewaldeva if it's a case that you have to do it. Don't take water and spritz on the women if it happens. In such a case, Simchas Torah, if it happens, at least again, and we're not talking about mingling or mixing. We're talking that they are sitting in the women's section, and you want to move the mechitzas that be able they should see each other. I'm maschichin oisa. So, in such a case, what's doing about giving lectures without a mechitza? Let's go about this thing, giving lectures without a mechitza. Now we know there's a letter of the Rebbe, Chelik Chovov, page Ayin 70. So the Rebbe has an answer to Tzach. Tzach in Etzisruel had a shaila like this. They wanted to make a shir Torah in one of the kibbutzim. Shomer Hatzur kibbutzim. If anybody knows what Shomer Hatzur kibbutzim is, that's fry as fry gets. They wanted to make over there and they asked the kibbutz, and they said they want to make a mechitza. And they agreed, yes, you want to make a mechitza? No problem. Give the lecture with a mechitza. Then it's probably Achim Laneshek, the organization, or some other lunatic came in and says, "What are you? Well, why mechitza? You are, women. All these women organizations that you're Afradat Nashim, they don't want." So they had a problem. Should they give the lecture or not? So they wrote to the Rebbe, what should we do? Should we continue to give the lecture when it's mixed, when it's without a mechitza at least, or not? The Rebbe writes like this: Harai koizvim lanal. Beferish, you said clear that sheladatem shemkorin nimalucha v'shafil Hashem ratzu dorshize. That means you wrote clearly in the letter that you hold according to halacha has to be a mechitza, and even the Hashem ratzu agreed to it. So now the question is, what's your shaila? Why Plissling change it? So the Rebbe says, fight it out. Don't go such a case. In such a case, no, I don't want. You told them, you explained them, it's a requirement in halacha. And you told them the halacha wants it, and it requires it. So, and they agreed. So therefore, no, don't give in to that. This is one letter. Then we have another letter. Then there's a letter which the Rebbe got from Brit HaMa'atzot, USSR, Russia, the old Russia. Tavshi Lamates. It's printed in Shara Lucha Minik Chayli Gimel, Omet Reichmem Gimel and Reichmem Dalet. So the question was like this: there is a group of women, young men and women, which they are interested in learning Torah, hearing Shirim Torah, underground Torah. Is it permissible that the shir should be for men and women if they sit separately? The women sit separately, the men sit separately. Is it permitted in such a case that we should make such a shir? That was the question from the organizers in Russia, USSR, 1979. before the glasnost. Prostroike. So the Rebbe answered like this. That means since USSR is very hard, suppressed Yiddishkeit, and since it's almost impossible that you should make a separate sheet for women and for men, this sheet itself is a Mesiras Nefesh. I'm ready to be lenient and to permit it should be a shear, one shear for men and women in the same room. But, the Rebbe writes, but, a big but, has to be clear. It is a heter yoytze min haklal. It is because of the circumstances which it is in USSR. I'm ready to give a heter yoytze min haklal. That means not what I hold. But I need two tenuim. In order this heter which I want to give something, going out of the ordinary, I'm ready with two tenuim. Has to be separate seating. Yashlil med beshirim meruim aili. Yes, I'm sorry. Aleph is you have to learn stuff which is applicable for women in Yerushalayim. That means you should learn halachas, which has to do with kashas, which women are mechiyav, hilchas Shabbos, hilchas Yontov, and in Yuna a minna havas Hashem Yiras Hashem. So since it's in Yonah which you have to teach for women because they are mechiyav with it, so therefore I'm ready to be lenient in such a case in USSR to be lenient that you should make a sheet chaz v'sholem mixed, but it has to be separate seating, and you learn from him things which they're mechiv to listen, and there's no other way how to teach them. That's one condition. Second condition, yesh lesader yeshiva nifredes lenoshem igburim, has to be separate seating. Dover shiyimne maga ishi, and you have to make sure that shouldn't be any mingling together, connection together. For instance, dancing, anything which is mixed with. If such a case, you could assure me I'm ready to make a yotzim and aklal. And the Rebbe adds on, listen, I want to, again, I want to make it clear again, writes the Rebbe. Shaheter anal, this heter is only on what is based, since you are in a Medina, in such a case that it's impossible to do otherwise, and since I want through this shir, you should be able to we want to minimize intermarriage. We want that they should be able to marry Yiddish people each other. In such a case, I'm ready to go lenient. And the Rebbe quote, B'shim oifen, ein ze mahavet tagdim lemedinas achayres. It is not a precedent for other Medinas. Shetenom aili eine shorim sham. If in other Medinas there isn't this exactly Tanai condition as USSR, ein leistamach al heter zeh, you cannot have any heter. And not only that, if it's going to change the conditions in Russia, ein leistamach al heter zeh, av ba'oisi Medina, b'mide v'anu mishtapri. Today's day that you can make separate shi'iram for men and women, so the Rebbe, in such a case, even though it's USSR, it's not USSR, it's Russia, you have to have separate shi'irim, not separate seating, separate shi'irim, because my heter is only USSR, and it's only when they sit separately, not mingled together. So, what do we do in our case? Now, we Rabbonei Chabad discussed it already, and I can put him some Rabbonei Chabad, and I myself will be from the people who also will say that the conditions in today's Chabad houses, in universities at least, I can put him in a Chabad house in a university, is exactly the condition which you have in Russia that times. That means if you are going to make separate for men or separate for women, what will happen? A lot of students are intermarrying today's day. So therefore, they won't come to such a shir. If it's only men only, women only, especially today's day where the woman groups are so strong, and hafrada mugdarit, is one of the biggest crimes which you have. If you are going to make a shiur, not in one room, you're going to make it separate rooms and separate shiurim, separate times. If the case is that people in university will not come, so therefore you won't be able to save them from intermarriage, you could be lenient again with the condition that it has to be separate seating. It cannot be mixed seating, cannot be, because the Rebbe didn't give a mixed seating even then. But if it is separate seating, university today's day, United States, again, I don't know other countries. I don't want to say in other countries, in Israel, I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't know. If the shlich and the b'matzav, which he sees that if he's going to make a shiur, separate lectures for men and for women, they're not going to show up, then he could be lenient to make a shiur in one room if it is separate seating, because that is the condition of USSR. If the matzav is going to change, or you are in a university which you could change, then that's something else, and you have no heter. So again, only in such a case we can be lenient. Other than that, you cannot be lenient, and even in such a case, you cannot be mixed seating. It's interesting to note that the Alter Rebbe writes in Hilchah Shabbos, Simashim Tezvuv Siv Gimel. He brings down a motche. He's talking about Simashim Tezvuv. We all know he's talking about making a mechitza. So the Alter Rebbe writes which mechitza is which he goes in a mechitza which is a materis, eine materis. So he says mechitza she'oisim b'shas hadrosha, a mechitza which you make when you make a drosha, lahafsik, to divide by nanoshim nanoshim. So you see that basically in the Rishonim and even way before that, by a drosha between men and women, you have to have a mechitza. So again, if it has not in a case which we are afraid of intermarriage, if it is a case where it is anash, which I keep on telling, we have to remember that anash communities are not based Chabad communities. In anash community, we have no heter to have a lecture if it is not separate lectures, or if it's in one room, you have to have a mechitza. Even if they're sitting separately, you have to have a mechitza between the lecturer, because the Rebbe says only in condition then I'm afraid there should be intermarriage. And when talking about anash fruma in Zeriga, there's no such a heter. Mixed sitting, kamivan, there's no heter at all. So just to sum up what we went through now. One final thing, when it comes to a mechitza, when it comes to a let's say for a lavaya, so on the street, it's enough when it's the two separate corners. They're not mingling together, because again, as we mentioned, they're not. It's akroi, and there is nish bo'oifen wie is man b'shas tzar chotshigas in Basamikdash. We have to say then it was a room, but if you make a hesped in a room, has to be in regular mechitzas, as we learn out from the pasuk. But if it's on the street and women are one side of the street, men are on the other side of the street, zugn the poskim in such a case, afrada is enough. You don't need to have a mechitza. Ba'alavaya. When it's a hesped, again, if it's a hesped, that means after not by the lavaya, you make a hesped with the shloishim or whatever it should be, and it's in the room, then you have to have a mechitza, because we see from the posik that when you are in the Indian of Tsar, you still have to have a mechitza. So let me just sum it up. We see two mechitzas. One mechitza is a mechitza in a shul by davening. That's a mechitza which has to be covered all the way till the top. You cannot see each other, and that there's no way. Even if you want to save Yidden from intermarriage, even you want to save Yidden not to go a member of the conservative or reform shul, there's no heter. A shul shouldn't have a proper mechitza, which is 6 feet and up, and has to be not see-through, and cannot be even. Lately, there's a new style. You make the bottom is wood, and the top is you put plants. It's making fun of yourself. You can see, look through, big plants. It's not covered. You know, you could. It's mechitzas shegedoim. Even the gedoim could go through. So again, we're making a shul, even a Chabad shul. There's no heter at all. Has to be a proper mechitza. No, nothing else. When it comes to other than davening in a shul, there are times when you need to have a mechitza. As I mentioned before, if something, they come together for a specific reason together, and you're coming together in order for a kaviyah, one of the two conditions, you have to have a mechitza. If it's a kroi, and it is not for a dover meshitaf, then you don't have to have a mechitza. But kemiven, it cannot chaz v'sholem be mixing, which that is ugefrekt miflich legomer. Okay, I think more or less I summed up the nekidus of mechitzas. If anyone has a question, should could ask, and we'll go to the next. What we have, simach of aleph, afroda between men and women. I'm gonna concentrate. You learned simach of aleph, but I'm going to concentrate applying simach of aleph in the workplace, because over there is the most places which you need the chokas, because there's the biggest machsholim come out from the workplace. So basically, I'm going to take simach of aleph and bring it into the workplace and see how we got to go. Any questions regarding till now on the mechitza inyan, and we can move on. Okay, so I'm going to move on. We learned simach of aleph again. You learned it had to be last week's shiur, but we're going to go with now. All the harchokas with the simach of aleph writes is harchokas is Medina, and it applies to women and to men. The same thing. Women are not exempt. There's only one thing which women are exempt. We could not stare on women, and a lady could stare on the man. A lady could see how men dance. A lady could see how men dance by a chasana or simchas Torah or whatever. But even when they're dressed properly, when the men dress properly, because even if they're not dressed properly by a beach or whatever it should be, a swimming pool, it's osir. But I'm talking if they're properly dressed, it is only of hiriram. They don't have this problem. Although we have a minority poskim which want to be machmad, it's consensus by most poskim that the women have no problem of hiriram, therefore they could look and see how men are dancing, which we cannot. But all other things, men and women are basically the halacha the same. Hishva kosiv by ish leishta, and has the same halacha. In the chinuch, when he writes, they got all these halachas on tznias, aroyas, which you learn in simach of aleph. The chinuch mitzvah kif payches writes shloilis admin aroyas. That means you shouldn't have hanof in aroyas. And he writes v'neheges, and this halacha is b'chol mokom, b'chol zman. You shouldn't say that 2024 is different. You shouldn't say America is different. And it is also v'neheges b'zechorim b'benekayvus. That means also they have a iser, all the isira which he comes over there. For instance, so the Shulchan Aruch says you cannot also likrit b'yudav b'raglav v'lirmas b'aynev lachel arois. You cannot wink. You cannot you make all kind of faxes and all kind of things to women. If it is matzah fina kirev, matzah from this, it's also to do krayvel aroyas. It is called krayvel aroyas, and we all know the Rambam writes krayvel aroyas is the rises. I'm famous machlokes the Rambam and the Ramban, and the Rambam holds in beginning of Sefer Amada in Mitzvah Shin in Gimel. He writes, quote, Shloile karav la'aroyas, you shouldn't get close to aroyas. What does it mean close? Bedvorim hamavim ledagili erve. Kigon chibuk, hugging, nishing, kissing, iremize, v'kvitza. Anything that means dancing, whatever, anything which you want to do something for her, you should arouse her attention. It's also because the pasuk says, I call shayat basura lesikri v'galas erve. It's also lesikri v'galas erve. That means not necessarily only gili aroyas mamash. All these things, it is even krayv al aroyas. And the Rambam says, "Mepi Hashmi alamdi." We have Mepi Hashmi. That means Moshe Rabbeinu Sinai. Shezi azora lekrayv hamabi la'gil aroyas. Any krayv which brings you to Chmon Lason get to doing a virus, it's osir. And the Rambam in Perashat Mishnayos Sanhedrin writes, "Va'kritze b'ma'ayin." If you are winking with your eyes for aroyas, and you do it in order to arouse her attention, Kol ze oser imakin laover malchus. The Rambam holds that he said the Raisa, and it is malchus. You're making malchus. So again, you have to understand how harsh the halacha is in this. So therefore, we have to understand the place where we come in contact a lot with women is basically in the working place. So therefore, you have to be very cautious in the workplace that it should be proper, because for instance, if you join an office together, you sit in the office together with a lady, although it's okay because you have, let's say, a window where people go together. Sitting in an office all day together with a lady, yeah, it is a big mishal of kraivel arois, because you get close, you got starting talking, and then you start asking questions, and not necessarily work related, and therefore it is always kedai. In Baruch Hashem, today's day it gets more and more, and it's always in the Chassidische Plätze. It is almost all the places, but even not Chassidische places, it comes in more and more. Even by Anash, I know a lot of offices which I was involved in designing their offices. They have separate offices for men, separate offices for women. That means the secretaries have a separate office. Now, if sometimes it's impossible, it is kedai for sure has to be a separate table. It's not a question. And it's kedai has to be a separate merchak. It should be a nice few feet. They shouldn't sit right next to each other. And it's kedai that today's day, in today's day, it is very popular even by the goyim. You have partitions between tables. It's poshet kedai because even it brings panos too, because if not, usually the co-workers start talking and schmoozing and plappling and politicizing one with the other, and it's a vacheshbon from the business. They put petitions. Most of the offices today's day have petitions, and this is a thing which is kedai to do. When it comes to sitting, sometimes you have to work with a co-worker on a project. It is kedai that you should have two screens. You can make today's day, you can make that one thing, it's one computer, but you can see it on the other computer too. That everybody should sit in separate computers, because if you have only one screen, you have to sit close. And rabbas machshoiles. And again, as I said, and I keep on saying it constantly, we all have nisyonos. We all are not exempt and immune of hiriram and temptations. This is a human nature. It is a thing which Rabbi Shem gave it in our nature. And if you have in nisyonos and yetzeroros and temptations for women, that means that's a sign that you are healthy. That's what Rabbi Shem gemacht. So again, don't put yourself in a space that you're going to. You're starting up on a journey which you don't know where you're going to end. And I can attest to you, a lot of divorces and a lot of problems which there is today start from offices, from working places. We're getting too close, you're getting too friendly. And again, people do not start this intentionally, but it's a snowball which gets more and more, once you start a connection. Now let's go a couple of halachas. Again, I want to stick to halachas, all which the pois can bring, and not, you could always be more frum, you could always add on in Yonah, but again, this Ashir for Rabbonim and Moireruas, if Shlichem, it should be more or less halacha. There's halacha shechenorach, we all know it because you all learned Simach of Aleph. Tzivov, Oser Lishel B'Shloi Misha. You cannot say Shalom Aleichem for a lady. So if you have, for instance, a co-worker was out for maternity leave, she was away for 6 weeks, and she comes back and say, Shalom Aleichem, you should know it's Oser Hapi Halacha to say Shalom Aleichem. Now, it's not Oser to say good morning. It's Nimus. It's not Oser to say have a good day. But it is Oser to say Shalom Aleichem, especially. I wrote a whole tshuva. I had a shaila from a lady which asked me, her husband's grandfather came to them for a week. The Zayde came to the grandson's house for a week. They had a simcha. So the lady asked me if I could say Shalom Aleichem for my husband's grandfather, if that's a problem. And it's not easy. But Pashtus is the same problem, because it's not. She's not a blood einikl. When it comes to blood einikl, all this halacha doesn't apply. But she's not a blood einikl. But in andere Zat, if you don't say Shalom Aleichem, is you could hurt them. It's minanim. So I wrote a whole tshuva that for a grandfather or a grandfather for a grandson, or a daughter-in-law to a father-in-law, you could be lenient. But stamazoi, for a person which is not even cousins, it is asr b'tzad halacha usar lisha b'shloim. So again, you could say good morning, you can say hello. You cannot say shalom aleichem. Not even that. You cannot ask her, how are you? Because when you ask how are you, you're talking to her direct. The poskim say, if you still want to be polite and ask, here you could ask, how is the family? Because then you don't talk to her directly, so to speak. You're inquiring on the family. How's the family? How is everyone? But you cannot say, how are you? When it comes to calling by the names, now it's a thing which was never, till I would say a couple of years ago, there wasn't such a thing by Chassidische Yidden. You should call a lady by the first name. Even a worker. You had workers, and Baruch Hashem, I grew up in with family members. My father had offices with the secretaries worked there. There wasn't such a thing as calling a lady by the name. You called her Mrs. Last name, Mrs. Cohen, Mrs. Levy. You didn't say Dvoiri. You didn't say Dvoira Leia. You didn't say Chai Mushka. There was no such thing as doing it. It's not only it wasn't such a thing. Halachically, you have an issue. Halachically, you have an issue. The Taz writes the Terezuv, and you saw it, Simcha of Aleph, Sivkut and Aleph. He talks about Shilas Shulam Leisha. So the Taz writes, Kosiv Marshal. The Marshal writes, Elefize, since it's also to ask Shloim Isha, Nahagi Heter Bager Shloimim Shepolshim Bam Isha. We have a heter since it's a problem to ask Shloim Isha. So we ask broadly in a letter. The Ava Pikan Nahag Lahachmar Shloilaskire Bishmo. So the poets can build on this Terezuv that we see from Terezuv is there's an India that you shouldn't call a lady by the name even when you're writing it. Avada punam aponam. So therefore, lately it became very how do you say it? It's an in thing, and as you know, it's a big problem because calling on a first name basis shows kiravadas, shows closeliness, shows friendliness, and you and a lady cannot be friends. You could work together, you could deal in business together, but you cannot be friends together because that's an iser of kareva la'aroyes. So I have constantly the shala. What do I do? The company demands it should be on a first name basis. There are some companies which demand it because it's too. I don't know why. So I had this shala a lot when I was in Monsi, by other people. So I said, if it happens that you have to have a first name basis, give yourself a nickname. It shouldn't be your real name. And even if your name is Chaim Mushka, call yourself Devoiri, or even a Goyish name is even better. And therefore, the personal name is very personal to a person. And calling by a personal name is it's a hard thing, and it's a problem halachic. So if you have to, give yourself a name, and that's why you see constantly in the Chassidische offices, you write to you deal with a coworker emails, and she has a name, and when you get her invitation to her chasana or whatever, then you see she has a different name, because that's the solution, which is the best solution if you need to have calling on a first name basis. If you don't need to have, call her by the last name, Miss or Mrs. or whatever it should be. Another very important thing is kedai, we should know. The locha is artar basiche misha. You cannot talk marbas asiche misha. And the Mishnah says, "V'chalamar basiche misha goyim ru la'atzmoi and v'soif yorish gehenim." Then you end up in gehenim. Zuktiv dem Rabbi Yoini in Sefer Hayira, which Rabbi Yoini is a poisek. What does it mean, siche ribi sicha? He says, like we see in the pasuk, from where do we learn that you cannot be mar basicha be'isha? We see by Beruria. Beruria was the wife of Ramayr, and there was one of which Tana was it? one of the Tanum, I think I'm not sure which one of the Tanum was on a crossroad, a junction, and he didn't know which way to go to Lud, right or left. And Pink Beruya was there, his Rebbe's wife. So he asked her, which way should we go to Lud? I want to go to get to Lud. So Beruya answered, Shoita. Why did you say which way should we go to Lud? Why didn't you say which way Lud? Why did you have to say which way should we go to Lud? Because once you said extra words, it's a Fershe Mishnah, Tarbasiche Mishnah. What do we see? Even if you have to ask something, which you have to know how to get to Lud, but you have to make sure to say it and very short and not extra words, because that's Bechlal Altar Basiche Mishnah. And that's even when things which has to do with workplace. You do what you need to ask, you ask. What you don't need to ask, you don't ask. Things which have nothing to do with workplace is easy to ask. Especially if it's personal, you can ask, what did you get for Chanukah from your husband? What did you get from your Mechteniste for a color presents? Yeah, or how was your sleep? All these things is echta isa. It has nothing to do with workplace. It has nothing to do with work. This, when it has to do with work, okay, you got to do what you got to do. But being friends, we and a female are not friends. The only friends we have is your children and your mother and your wife. And so therefore, where did you go for vacation? These things are not made for Chassidish Yidden to ask for Yiddish Yidden from women. That's part of Altar B'Sich Isha, which is halacha, paskins like that. Even in such a way that you have to ask, you have to shorten it all the way as much as possible. Kemivan that there shouldn't be any connection between other out of the workplace, calling home, how she's feeling. It's very good to be polite when you're in office, but even if she went home when she had a headache, don't call up and ask, how are you doing? All these things brings kirav hadas, and there is a big problem. All the problems started with these tiny things, which people let down their guard for innocently, for being nice, and a lot of problems and getting and a lot of other things happened, and I don't want to elaborate, but it's enough. And the same will also be the same. All the things which are not allowed to do, ask B'Shloim Isha, is also by emails. That's also by text. And that's also all kind of communications. I saw lately from one of the contemporary poskim say that emojis is even a bigger problem, because two people which are professionals two doctors which they have discussed something, even if they're friends, will not send emojis. When you're a good friend, a close friend, you can send emoji. But the professionals do not send emojis. So again, formal things, there's no emojis, and therefore, if you send for a coworker emoji, guys is around the gate of Mחיצה laroyas, and it's a big problem. The same thing is also giving her compliments on her personally. You could say, the work you did is good, but you cannot give personal compliments. You look good, or chas v'shulam, other things. All these things has to be a non-starter. And because it is a part of Simach of Aleph Shechanorach, you have to have have to stay away from women. Steht in Shechanorach, another sif, which you learned, sif high. Also l'shtamas be'isha. You cannot be mishtamas be'isha, and as the poskim write, only with your mother, with your daughter, with your sister, with your daughter, with your granddaughter. You can be mishtamash. With all the other, you cannot be mishtamash. Therefore, when you have a secretary who works in your office and she says, I'm going out for lunch, and you tell her, do me a favor, if you're going out, go into the restaurant, buy me a coffee, or do me a favor, if you go out, wash your hands or whatever, if you're going to the ladies' room, do me a favor, way back, could you please get me a coffee? That's called Shtamshes ben Isha, and it's Oser api Shechanorach Aklora Sif and Shechanorach. It's Oser. The poskim say in some offices there is Toranut. That means every day someone else buys he has to go down or she has to go down and buy for every person in the office the lunch. Everybody gives in the morning or afternoon their menu, and she goes out and brings it. Since it is not specific for one person, it is for the whole office, that's not a problem. Or if you have somebody who is a waiter, which her in the office, a big office, and her job is to bring coffee at the coffee time for all the workers, that's not a problem. But bringing for a specific person privately and asking her to bring, that's a part of a problem of halacha shulchan aruch, ein mishtamshin be'isha. Another thing which became lately a big problem, and we have to, it's Gdly to stop it. Some companies is a new thing. They used to give a vacation a week or 2 weeks during the year. Now the company takes you and makes a trip together. Makes a trip together, or they have lunches together. All the workers have together lunches. Now, if the men are separate, the women are separate, that's fine. It's gefährlich. But if it's not to separate, which is leider today's day, they make a lunch, a big Hanukkah party, and the women and men are together in one room. And even if it's not necessarily sitting meal, even if there is there's a middle of the office, there is a nice smorgasbord, and the women and the men both together are mingling together. All these things is a big problem, and the whole tiyul to go together has to be thought through. It should be altaras hakodesh, because in a lot of offices is out of control, and a lot of offices is even in the offices which are chassidish Yidden, betachlis when it comes to regular, but when it comes to this kind of things, office, there is some kind of lenient that for panosa make man alts. We have to understand that no, the Torah is also in a way that the Torah is also in business. The Torah is also where you go on vacation. The Torah shulchan aruch is also all of these things. Has to be separate men, separate women, no mingling together. And your co-worker's wife has nothing to do with you. You don't know. You need to know her enough to talk to her. That's not even you with your friend. Okay, it's men. But the whole thing that comes together now. They go out together and they sit together and become friends. This is hepech haTorah and hepech shulchan aruch and hepech chassidus. Again, we have to remember, I'm talking to chassidish Yidden. I'm not talking to Beis Chabad community. I'm talking now to chassidish Yidden. We have to know it's a shulchan aruch, and we cannot compromise a shulchan aruch even a bit. Same thing will also going out with a client. A man going out with a lady client or vice versa is a big problem. A big problem. Now, if you have a insurance broker or whatever you are, make sure you need to go out. The women should go with the women. A female should go with a female. A male should go with a male. You don't go separate out. Now again, if it is in a way that, for instance, it is a sometimes you're doing a mortgage. Yeah, you have to meet with the bank, and you're sitting. It comes three people from the bank come their side, and 3 people from the company, and they sit. Separate, and in such a case, they eat together. Sure, it's bakroi. We can have lenient, but taking out a client from the other gender is a problem. Halacha gedik. Giving matonas, giving for a co-worker a matana which is a female, it's also iser gomer. Iser gomer. The Maril, one of the Avi Ashkenaz, one of the last Rishonim, beginning of Achronim, writes a similar with Aleph, sending a present, even if it's a tiny present, giving a chocolate, a bar of chocolate, or whatever it should be. That's the lotion of the Maril, and that's why the Ramur writes in Simon Tuvrash Tzadik Vov, which we just learned in Lachs Purim, that you don't send Mishloach Munas to women. It's not because of Sifloinus. He sent men to men, women to women. It's based on this Maril giving matonas to a lady. So therefore, even if you give a pen for a present, even if you give a chocolate, anything which you give for a present for a female, that's the beginning of a very dangerous road, and it's poshet asad ma'alocha. The poskim write even more. If, for instance, a co-worker gets married or makes a chasana, she could invite everyone to come to the chasana. inviting one person personally goes into Inyan fin Kirov, and it's a problem. Again, the Mekidus Advurim is anything which is together with the whole office, that's part of Nimus, that's part of Menschlichkeit, that's part of normal, decency that they could do. Having a personal connection, personal relation, a personal closeness, that's possible betachlis, apostle, it's also betachlis isar, and you have to avoid it at any cost because it is very dangerous. Giving over to someone a lady in the hand. Now we know in Shulchan Aruch, the Gemara says that hamaratza muos meish leisha ein lechaylik le'olam yored gehenna magdek shigid deloshin. But Lamasa, the poskim say, if it is not in order you want to see her, look at her, look at that finger, look at her, whatever, just giving over to her hand, me'iker hadin mitzad halucha, there's not a problem. So there's not a problem giving over your documents, which in the office, to a lady in her hand, or she should give over something for you. Because in the B'Yosef writes it again in Sof Siman Chuf Aleph, he brings a Chivas Rashba, Bashar Nushim, other women, Sh'ayin Liba Gazbehem, which is not Liba Gazbehem, as I mentioned last Shir. Liba Gazbehem means you're close, you got brought up with her, sister-in-laws, etc. Such a thing, giving over a kli in her hand, is not a problem. Since it's Ayin Liba Gazba. So first we see that when it's Liba Gazba, you have a problem. Giving over for a brother, a sister-in-law, brother-in-law, then you could go into problems. If it's not Liba Gazba, a co-worker, then giving over a hands mitzad adin is not a problem. But after it began, it is kedai, mitzad midas efshir, mitzad midas chasidus, that you should not give her over from hand, and that's who says it? Not the Psachsidish Rebbe, but Hashilchem paskens it. He says, Af sheyesh makilam lahoishid miyuda liyuda, in your own yimachma ba'isha nida, mekol mekom hayura is devar Hashem, a person is Yerushalayim, should stay away from these two. So the Hashilchem paskens in Siman Chof Aleph, that even giving over, even though he cannot answer it halachically, a Yerei Shemayim puts it down on the table, does not give it over in the hand for someone else in the hand. Shaking hands is a iser gumer even lesoirich parnosa. There's no heter for parnosa. You should shake hands, and according to us, a lot of poiskim, it is bechlal a vazraya de aroyas, and we mentioned last year by vazraya de aroyas we have a lot of poiskim daran and other poiskim which hold that is a chiyah in herug yaliyav. And Sharachiv Rabbi Yoina says it, and Sefer Chassidim says clear that Lo Yitka Yehidi Yudi B'Kafanachris, a man should not shake the hands of a goiter and the goiter in a Jewish hand, and even for not only goiters, also for Jewish people, even if they have gloves. Even if they have gloves, it's not a heter, it's also B'Tachlas a Iser, and the Moshe Feinstein also in Ebenezer Chalik Dalas Lamed Bais. He says, in order to shake hands, that so again, it's a iser guma shake hands, and some points can say it's a shal of a herug d'aliyav. And even if she stuck out the hand first, you cannot give back, and she might get insulted, but there's not a heter of you should shake hands because she gets insulted, and gets assaulted. You still have to have Shulchan Aruch in that case. I just want to share a story which happened to a person which I know very well. He used to once daven in our shul. He was working in putting down parquet floors in a huge Yiddish company. He was a salesperson for parquet flooring, and they had a deal. A company which wanted to put down parquet floors and 250 apartments, a huge account. And there was a lady, which she was a person, a salesperson for the buyer, went around in the companies and priced. She came into the company which my mispal davened worked. And he was the salesperson for the job. And she said, hello, my name is X, Y, and Z. I have an appointment over here. and she stuck out the hand to give Shalom Aleichem. And he tells me, I was a split second, I was taken aback because, what should I do? Von einer Seite, ich bin nicht so ein größer Frimmer bei Itzem. Ich meine, aber von anderer Seite, how could I do that? And he decided I'm not shaking hands with her. And he said, the last time I shook hands with a lady, I ended up with 5 children, and he didn't give back the hand, and she got very defended. She looked around, just mit Tamanimus, and she left the company. And he tells me, I thought I lost this account because it's a big account, but he wanted to know if he did the right thing. He says, what kind of shaila? It's a issa to shake hands, even for the parnasa. There's no hatter. So he was calm, he was pleased, but he had a problem because he killed a client with such a big account for his bosses. Wie steht die Kazana Freeman on the cheshm of her bosses? So I told him it's not a fremkeit, it's halacha, and you cannot compromise halacha even for your friends. Your fremkeit is one thing, but not halacha. And he did the right thing. This is what he comes back to me later and says, I got the account. We got this job. So he tells me, I asked this lady, how come you got a job? When you came, you wanted to shake hands. I said no. And you got offended. I saw you got offended, and you left. Why did you get a job? Give us this job. She tells him like this. Yes, I got offended, and I got offended very, very badly. And I decided I don't want to deal with such a fanatics. But after I went by a day or two, I decided the only person which is honest with himself, with his God, with his Torah, is this man. If he's honest with his Torah and with halacha, when it comes to women, he's going to be honest also in business. And therefore, I'm ready to go with you, which you are an honest guy, and whatever we make up, that will be the price. Or going with other companies which came in with better deals, but always the end game, and I have to pay much more. So if I see you're an honest guy, because I saw you're honest with your God, I see you're going to be honest with your work, with your clients, and you got the job because of that. So he came back, tells me, you should know, my frimmigkeit, which I was hesitated, I got this job. So what's the point of the story? There's halacha, the Shulchan Aruch. You cannot compromise your Yiddish Shemayim because of parnasa. If you are working on a job that it compromises your Yiddish Shemayim, pick yourself up and get a new job. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives parnasa, not the job gives parnasa. And the Rebbeinu Shalom, who wants to give you parnasa, can give you other ways. If it is against halacha, if it compromises your Yiddishkeit, your Chassidishkeit, just pick yourself up and look for a new job. Another thing which is important, sometimes there's a coworker which you have to give her a ride home. The company is, let's say, 15 minutes away from Crown Heights or from Monsey or whatever, and she's a secretary, and you have to give her a ride home. So the poskim write, it should not be one of the people who work in the office, work with her. Only if it's more than one woman, and you take home a bunch of women. But if you have, let's say, one secretary, which you have to drive her home, especially if it's a kavias, it's on a daily basis, you shouldn't do it. You should have somebody which is a taxi, even though you are going also to Monsey or you're going also to Crown Heights. Why should you pay extra money? Zoeken de poiskim, ravozen mit andere, that you should not, because once it's on a daily basis, even if there's no yichud, once it gets on a daily basis on one-on-one, it's very, very dangerous, and therefore it's asr. Ravozen wants to say it's asr afilu mitzad hadin, and even if you can make money out of it, don't do it, and have a taxi should come and pick her up, and not you. But if it is, for instance, a whole group of women, and you have to, that's something else, but that's not a one-on-one, and then you could be more lenient. Let's say if it's not at night, and there's no ladies which stay and end less than 3 women. Kemivan, if in a matzav, then you have to take her, or in a matzav that you are permitted. Women should not sit in the front seat. The women should sit in the back. A lady should not sit in the front seat, right next to the driver. Another thing is very important. People who have offices, it's your achrayas that the workers, the ladies, the girls, come dressed tzniusdik. It is not a heter. I'm not going to tell them. It's not my business. Well, who am I to say how they no, if they dress not appropriate, not according to halacha, it is a chiyuv on you to tell her or kick her out. It's a chiyuv. The Rambam writes in Hilchot, and the Torah brings it down in Hilchot Simon Ches. A person which is not makpid on his wife, his children, or anyone which is you have ashpo on him, and you are not makpid on them that they should dress appropriate. You could be moiche, you could have a word on him, and you don't do it. You are going to be punished the same as her and going down to Gehenna because you have a achrayas on your co-workers. And it's interesting to note the Gemara in Avodah Dafit Ches Amad Aleph writes that there was a gzaira on the wife and the daughter of Reb Chanina ben Teradian that they should get killed. On his wife, there's a gzaira she should get killed, and on the daughter that she should get caught. Why? The Gemara says, the Rebbe says, because once the daughter of Reb Chanina ben Teradian was walking, and there was Gdoli Roima walking back of her, and one said for the other person, give a look at this girl, how nice she walks. So since she heard what they say, she started being makpad and walking even nicer. So therefore, the desire was that she should have to fall in captivity by Hamas and being raped, Rahman al-Islam. And his wife, since she was not moicha on the daughter, the desire was she should get killed, Rahman al-Islam. So therefore, we see that whenever you have, and this is what the Rishonim bring, arai, that you have to be moicha on people. So therefore, there's no heter. I'm sorry, she's my worker. It's none of my business. If she works by you, you have leverage on her, and you can tell her she has to wear clothing according to halacha. You're not telling her to wear Taliban dresses, but it has to be according to halacha, and you're going to be liable if she does not change, because you had the option to be moicha and you didn't be moicha. Two more halachas which I want to finish is one, it's aser mitzad halacha. You learned it in the Shulchan Aruch. Aser mitzad halacha to walk in back of a lady, even if she's there appropriately, even if she's just tznius. If you come across a lady, you have to make sure you go in front of her, or let's do them, and then it's okay. And that's halacha is even in back of your wife or in back of your sister. Although there is more lenient when it comes to a sister and a wife, but walking a back of a wife is an iser, and the whole iser of walking a choyre isha we learn from the Gemara, which says Manoich was a moritz, because it says in the pasuk in Shmuel, Vayaylach Manoich achra ishtoi. So we see Manoich went in back of his wife. So we see he was a moritz. He doesn't know the halacha that it's also to go in back of a isha, and in back of your wife is a part of a isha. So we see that even in back of your wife, you cannot walk in back of her. And final halacha is it's also to look window shopping on big night tzivonim. If it is a lady which you know, that means like this. If it is on a lady which you don't know, it's on top of her, that's kemivan also, that's pashit also, because you're looking on a lady. But even if it's not on her, it's on a doll, it's on a manicure, I think it's called. No, I think it's a fake body. And there is a clothing of a woman which you know it's hers. It's aser be'iser gumar to look at it, because it brings to a hirer v'rishmartim kalderu. Al kapone for all this halacha and for all learning Simi Chof Aleph, we see that a lot of things which we think it's a frumikeiten, it's midas chasidus, we see it's clearly halacha. It's not frumikeiten. It's halacha which is aser mitzad adina. and we have to go over these halachas. We have to teach these halachas. We have to give over for our children the halachas. We have to tell them what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. Kemivan has to be b'darkei noyim. Especially today's day has to be b'darkei noyim with cycle. But has to be like the Rebbe used to say b'darkei noyim, aval b'toikev hamasim. Has to be clear guidance. And you should know your children, your co-workers, your wife, people which you have ashpua on them are ready to accept. You have to tell them. You have to be mo'oire them. It is not a thing which you say, it's not my business. And I want to finish with a story. We have to finish. We have one a story that Baruch Hashem, I'm in Olam HaYarua a lot of years. I would say almost 20 years. And there was, and I have constantly women who came with shilas. And not everybody wore 100% appropriate. And again, it's I couldn't tell, because if somebody comes and I don't know or I have no connection, saying for someone else, you can push it away. So I answered the question, I answered the shaila, I answered the mara, and that's about it. But once they start coming, and I became their rov, so to speak, so I could be more from time to time. There was once one lady who came, and she came dressed mamash inappropriate, And after I answered the shaila, I asked, could I ask you a question? Don't get offended. I want to ask a question. Why are you coming to a rov shaila, especially, but even after that, why don't you dress appropriately? And she answers me, Rabbi, believe me, tell me what's not appropriate and I'll change. I don't know. I'm a balas tshuva. I grew up in a community which wasn't from. And even though I'm now, today's day, in a Nash community a while, but I don't know what is appropriate, not as 100%. Nobody tells me, tell me what you want. Tell me what's not appropriate. I'm gonna, no problem. I'm happy you make me aware. And from then, she always came dressed, and she always were dressed appropriately. Now, what that means, you have to have cycle, you have to adjust and realize, again, we're talking to people who can call Rabbanim, you have to evaluate. If you cannot say it in the right way and on the right tone, then don't say it. Then don't say you're going to push away a shoyel. But if it is a thing which you see, you have ashpua on her, she asks you all the questions, she asks you your advice, you have some kind of connection that you see that she's makabel ashpua, speak up in a nice, polite way, apologize. They're ready. You should know the women are much more ready to accept than you think. And that's even by somebody who comes to you for a shaila, especially your family, your wife, your children. If you do it b'chachma, has to be b'chachma, you could poil by them everything. And the Rebbe should help b'schis nushim tzidkonius nigali avasayim b'mitzrayim. And as Chazal say, b'schis nushim tzidkonius yigali. We are going to have the redemption, b'schis nushim tzidkonius, especially if you have the proper guidance, proper division between men and women, and if we know how to act towards each other according to halacha, according to shulchan aruch, and they dress according to halacha, according to shulchan aruch, as the Rebbe once said in a sicha, the yisodes for women of the women's chiyuvim is to dress appropriately. B'schis nushim tidkunis nigla b'sayim b'mitzrayim. B'schisem we are going to go out of the golos. V'nissen negale v'nissen asin legual b'mayre v'mayni mamish. If there's any questions, I can take for the next minute, a couple of minutes. If not, you should all have a chakush v'samayach. Any questions?
Rabbi, what's for the Megillah?
The what?
Megillah reading.
Again, if it's in a shul, there's no question. It has to be separate, regular division with the machitza.
Not the shul.
If it's what? If it's
an elderly group of Russian Jews already sitting on the table.
And mixed or not mixed?
Mixed.
I would say such a case, you have to divide them. Say that you go one side, men on one side, women on another side. It's even worse than just a shear. It's even worse because
they're already sitting.
I can't hear you. What do you say? I can't hear you.
They're already sitting in their places.
Okay, I didn't see in the Rebbe's words or any of those that in such a case that you could be more lenient.
For the future, I'll know.
Okay, anybody else has something to ask? Let me just add on one more thing. I gave a shiur by Kinnis Shlichim, one of the Kinnis Shlichim on this topic. It was the Kinnis Shlichim Hazuri, the local Kinnis Shlichim, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, the local Kinnis Shlichim. The same night which I gave the shiur on this topic, Rabbi Shapiro gave a shiur on the same topic. It's interesting, I didn't know of him, he didn't know of me. On the same topic, and the Kinnis Shlichim Hazuri in Miami. And since I heard that he gave it the same topic, and I'm a good friend with Rabbi Shapiro, I picked up the phone. I said, "Hello, Rabbi Shapiro." Coincidence, Bashkocha Protis. We spoke on the same topic, and we spoke what he gave, what I said. So I said that I gave a heter for the people on colleges. I said that I feel that today's day in America, people on colleges, as I mentioned before, people on colleges, today's day, since we have to avoid intermarriage, you could be more lenient that to give lectures in one room, and it could be more, more lenient, He tells me, I gave the same shiur as you. The only thing different is I was machmer in this nikida. I hold no, I could put them separate rooms, yes, but not mixed. Which I didn't say mixed, but I could put them. He said, and he tells me, I'm going to tell you a story. One of the universities in Florida got a new shlich, and the shlich came over to me and asked me, give me guidance, how, what, where, and this things. So I told him, you have to make separate, even see the Shabbos. Oh, I remember what I said. See the Shabbos. Don't be so strict, because over there they should have some kind of connection, and you want to intermarriage. He says no. I said no. Has to be separate. I was all the way machbar. So the shlich tells him, Rabbi Shapiro, in this case, my whole shlich is I won't be successful. Who's going to come? And students won't come. Why should I go then to become a shlich in a university? The Bible says no. You do what you need to do a pitoira, and you're going to be successful even though. So the Bible tells me, the Gemara tells him, Rabbi Shapiro, since you're my Rosh Yeshiva, my Rebbe, I'm going to do it with Kabbalah's oil. I know I'm in for a disaster, but I'm going to do it with Kabbalah's oil. And he went for shlichas and he started dividing, making separate. And the Bible tells me, he comes over to him after a while and says, now I'm here X amount of time, not too long, and I'm a very successful shlich in the university. And he tells me, I'm not going to say who, when, where, but I'm telling you, he's one of the most successful shlich in the university with all the fremmigkeiten. So I'm just giving over the story which happened this year, summer, which Rabbi Shapiro told me, the Bible. Again, ich halt that if you need to, you can be more lenient. In university, again, only university, because over there you get close. Over there you pick girlfriends, and if you want, there should be intermarriage. You can be a little bit more lenient. But avada, if you want to be machma like Rabbi Shapiro, I'm sure the Eibishter and the Rebbeinu Shalom will help. If you get a brocha from a choshev roof like Rabbi Shapiro, you can be successful. But again, that's one of the difference. I went through my shiur and his shiur. We were almost on the same page. This was one of the things which you disagree. I was too lenient. He wasn't. So I'm just bringing it down. You should know that don't think that you have to always be matter. The shlich al-asar has to make his evaluation if he needs to be Michael on something or he doesn't need to be Michael on anything. Zatz magazin. Good night. Achak kusha v'samayach, and you should be successful in all of your halacha and psak and everything. That's good night.